Hello, welcome everybody who's joining right now. We see you popping in. We are going to just get started here in 1 minute. We're going to let you get settled in, get started here in 1 minute, but thank you for joining today's webinar on AI for process optimization. Welcome everybody. We'll get started in a minute here. Give it 30 more seconds. And Khaled, do you see my slides?
Yes. John, you're frozen.
Okay. Perfect. All right, we're going to get started here. I'm frozen. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, but there's a delay.
You can't hear me
I don't
now?
know if
Okay,
I
you
don't know
can't
if
hear me
it's
now.
me.
Okay.
Is it me or is it everybody? You see the delay,
There's
right?
well, you know what? I am going to turn off. I'm going to turn off my video because that might just be a bandwidth issue. So just I'm going to turn that off, but I'm going to continue going through these slides. Welcome everybody for AI for process optimization. We're going to go over how to improve manufacturing efficiency today. My name is John Kirchner. I am the production director for Connex. Just wanted to mention that we'd love for you to join our upcoming webcast for the rest of the year. We have AI on data integrity next month. November, we have mastering risk-based approaches in CSV and CSA compliance. And then we have in December validation documentation. Our upcoming conference schedule, I just want to mention for the rest of the year, we have some exciting conferences coming up. Many of the panelists today will be joining and speaking on some of these. In October, we have MedTech Innovation and Validation and GMP University. Not only will we be going over AI and quality management systems such as SAMD, CSA, QMS, risk, CAPA's deviations. We'll also be covering those traditional topics in change control, data integrity, quality metrics, QRM, and on the MedTech side, QMSR, cybersecurity, and CSA. There's a lot going on there. We also have two Harness the Powers of AI and GXP. We're going to be in Puerto Rico. That's actually going to be December 3rd and 4th. That date is wrong on the slide here. And then we have in November 19th and 20th, we have our AI and GXP in Dublin. So we'll be going over use cases in AI across the GXP landscape and risk, CAPA's deviations, supply chain, pharmacovigilance, labeling, predictive analytics, and so on. Then we're ending with our mothership conference, CSV and CSA University. We'll be going over traditional, digital, and AI applications, such as validating smart sheets, cloud applications, spreadsheets, network infrastructure, and so on. And then we'll be tackling all the AI topics, such as data integrity, AI in manufacturing, and AI use cases in validation. So to just get everybody warmed up, I'm going to launch our first poll here. I need to go back to our.
Oops.
Oh, can we see, Khaled? I might have to have you take over. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to launch the poll later. I'm going to let you turn it off to Khaled Musali, the Executive Vice President of Compliance Group, who's going to moderate today's session and introduce the panelists.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. And can you all hear me? I hope. Yes.
Yes.
And let me see. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
But not the, here you go. Let me go into a presenter mode. Let me know if, do you see a presenter mode?
We do.
Yes.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. Thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. I know some of us on the West Coast here in the U.S., some of us on the East Coast. So we've got all kind of hours, but it's great. And thank you to Connex for really conducting these webinars. They're educational. They help all of us. Look, I'm a quality compliance kind of guy. And you know, I did not really want to do with technology, but guess what? We all have to do with technology. We all do ChatGPT today. AI is surrounding us. It's everywhere. And when I hear optimization, improvement, efficiency, I want to be part of that. So again, thank you, John, and the Connex organization, and thanks for these amazing folks that are joining me here. Before I introduce them, I just want to introduce my company. That is, I'm very proud of. Co-founded 2017. We're a small boutique firm. We do specialized staffing, strategic consulting, and technology solution. We are beyond compliance. We're powered by innovation. You have no idea how many AI tools we're creating. I don't know how we're going to sell them though. But the bottom line is it's really important to partner with organizations like Viva, for example, like Siemens, to affiliate ourselves with the FDA, with the MDIC. Whoever don't know, MDIC is the Medical Device Innovation Consortium, which really bring the public sector and the private sector together to really have discussions. We pretty much support all of the life science. I don't want to say just the medtech or pharma, all life science, medtech, pharma, and biotech. So enough about me and the company. I will introduce myself a little bit before everyone else. Khaled Musali, Executive Vice President of Corporate Development and Operations. Been in the industry for close to 30 plus years. Started my career in the cosmetic industry, loved the GXP space. I'm a mechanical engineering by education, ended up in software, I don't know how, development, support, validation, and I've been in the validation space, computer system validation, computer software assurance for so many years. My last corporate job was with Baxter Healthcare. I was a long run for 20 years. It was great, but I'm definitely happier to be a consultant. Why? Because I literally talk to everyone in the globe. I enter so many different companies. I see the same pain, same problems. And honestly, I don't want to say that keeps me up at night, but it makes you wake up early to go and help. So enough about me and my company and Connex. Let's have these amazing subject matter expert that said yes to this webinar to join us. And we're going to start with the ladies first with Madhavi. Madhavi, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Khaled. My name is Madhavi Ganesan. First and foremost, thank you, Connex, for inviting me to join this panel. And thank you to the panelists for joining me as well. As I said, my name is Madhavi Ganesan. I am a director at KPMG, focusing on everything CSV and technology related. I've been at the firm for over 8 years. I've been working with the likes of Khaled, Abhishek, and others to really develop and build solutions that help and support the GXP space. Before coming to KPMG, I was actually in industry similar to Khaled and doing much of the same work. So really excited to be here and having this conversation with you all.
Thank you, Madhavi. Chris?
Thanks, Khaled. Chris Nur, Vice President of Technology Strategy for Viva Systems MedTech. And also thanks to the Connex and the Compliance Group for hosting the panel today. I think we're going to have a really, really interesting and hopefully valuable discussion on this topic, which obviously is very much on everyone's mind. Viva Systems, I'm sure most everyone knows, but maybe I could just explain a little. We're the largest pure cloud-native SaaS set of solutions for the life sciences industry. primarily pharma and medtech, but also some adjacent spaces as well. And the Veeva platform covers everything from R&D through quality systems, regulatory, and then commercial operations and CRM. So not so much core supply chain, which actually I'll come to in a minute as more of my background, but kind of everything supporting ideating products, bringing them all the way to market, and then competing in the market against other organizations, and with really a focus on industry value and on patient value. I am also have an industry background. I was a vice president at Johnson & Johnson for many years, and actually, as I said, came from supply chain. I used to run J&J MedTech and then J&J Enterprise ERP portfolio for many years. I left J&J about 10 years ago and started a software company in the machine learning space. So I've been working in and around AI and machine learning for the last 10 years. My role at Veeva Systems, I spend most of my time with CIOs and technology executives kind of looking at, okay, in the real world, how are we going to deploy and understand all the different kinds of AI that there are? It's a huge change for many organizations, a tremendous amount of value that can be delivered, but also some kind of characteristic challenges, especially when we're working in highly regulated industries. So thanks again. Looking forward to having a great discussion today. Should be quite interesting, I hope.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And one thing special about Chris and Veeva Systems that we're actually a partner with Veeva. So thank you again, Chris, for joining us. And last but not least, we leave the best for last. Abhishek, please introduce yourself.
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Abhishek Bachchan. I'm part of Gilead Sciences, and we focus on security risk and compliance for GXP applications and infrastructure over there. So we have to deal with end-to-end, whatever is needed to keep our systems innovative, at the same time compliant in a robust manner. So from policy to all the way to implementation and providing compliance and quality oversight. Yeah, so I've been in the industry for about 22 years now. I'm also a mechanical engineer by education. Then I switched to computer science. So after I did my master's, Part 11 was a big thing about 22, 23 years back. And I joined Merck Pharmaceuticals. So since then, I've stayed in the industry dealing with various CSVs and quality type of roles. So more Thermo Fisher Scientific, McKesson, and now with Gilead. So I'm very excited to be part of this panel. I'm excited about learning more things. Whenever I join Kennex conferences, it's great to meet brilliant people and learn from them. So thank you, Khaled and Kennex, for doing this.
Thank you, Abhishek. Appreciate it. Alrighty, I like to always kind of really start any webinar as to why we're doing all of this. We all come from the GXP background, manufacturing background, technology, etc. But we always think that the FDA is behind, the future. It's not true. The FDA, and again, myself, my company, and other colleagues of mine, we've been collaborating with the FDA for the past literally 20 years. The FDA view of automation, yes, go for it. We want it. We need it. Whatever it is. This is a kind of an old slide. This is when we started talking about CSA, computer software assurance, and why CSA came into the picture to really help company bypass the burden of documentation of CSV and look to innovate and implement more tools. So again, the view of the FDA is like, automation reduces errors and patient risk. It increases business value and efficiency. And this is what we're talking about today. That's why I love that screenshot. And by the way, this is from my good old buddy, Cisco Vicente, when he was with the FDA. He's no longer with the FDA. We call him the former dude. And then anyway, it optimizes resources, right? Again, automation is a must these days. It's not an option, in my opinion, right? And then, of course, it builds on proven benefits from other industry. Look where the financial industry, commercial, automotive is way ahead of us, in my opinion. Aerospace, right? Think of the risk of all those, industry. Yet our industry continue to crawl a little bit, but I think we're doing much better. All I can tell you, in the last 10 years, we're doing way much better. And maybe it's CSA or something else. Anyway, a couple of things here. Manufacturers are under so much pressure, like never before. They need to deliver higher quality product faster with fewer resources. What has changed? Well, what's changed is that AI is no longer a future promise. It's already embedded in leading operations. Today, AI is not about robotics or automation. It's about making data work harder for us to predict issues before they actually occur, optimize production, schedules, and even reduce waste. So again, companies that embrace this shift are seeing measurable impact and cost and speed and quality. So our goal today is to share real practical insights. You'll hear from these three young subject matter experts and thought leaders, how AI is solving specific problems, from minimizing downtime with predictive maintenance to improving yield through smarter process controls. Industry 4.0, this is just for your background. This is not what we're going to be talking about because this is kind of behind us. We're really moving forward. Industry 4.0, in the medical device space, it went through many iterations. Look where we were in the end of the 18th century and look where we are today. Pharma 4.0, again, GAMP, by the way, GAMP, ISB GAMP, GAMP 5 second edition, spoke a lot about Pharma 4.0 and kind of really endorsed the Industry 4.0. So look at all the lingo that we're seeing. It's all connected. It's all automation, artificial intelligence, big data, IoT, etc. What really resonated with me is $4.5 billion predicted industry-wide spending on digital transformation by 2030. I know I don't have any of that money, but I'm sure many organizations are planning on doing that. Cool. With that said, I'm gonna pause here and start my questions to my panelists. And I'm starting with Madhavi.
I did want to throw out there that, please feel free, the audience, ask questions throughout. We'll be monitoring the questions and chat and really throw in questions that are appropriate to the discussion to the panelists.
Yeah, feel free, guys, to interrupt us anytime you want, right? And well, not really interrupt us, but when John tells me there's a questions, I'd like us to take that question because those are really important too. Madhavi, I'm going to start with you, if you don't mind. What are the most promising near-term use cases for AI in pharma, biopharma manufacturing today?
It'd be great if I get myself off mute, but
that will help.
So thank you for the question. Gosh, there's so many use cases. I can't even begin in regards to those that are most relevant and most important. It goes across the entire value chain, Khalid, looking at everything from discovery, drug discovery, understanding and helping in regards to drug development and understanding new molecules, identification of new molecules. I mean, it was very critical and it was key in regards to identifying and developing the COVID vaccine. Looking at all the way through to actually clinical trials and supporting clinical trials, and evaluating clinical trials, and then going into manufacturing. And that's what we're here to discuss today, looking at preventive maintenance solutions, the QC lab, digital twin in manufacturing, especially in cell therapy, as well as in the quality space. I know quality is the least risk adverse, but if you see quality organization is probably the biggest organization that's embracing these solutions, looking at visual inspection, looking at root cause analysis, et cetera. And then all the way through to post-market surveillance and supporting adverse events and assessing adverse events. So there's so many use cases. I'd love to go on and on, but I think we've gone through a few that I think are very relevant.
That's great. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. I kind of want to move to Chris a little bit, given where Chris's background also in the medtech space within Veeva Systems. Chris, question for you on playbook. What's a practical, start small kind of playbook, pilot kind of, data prerequisite and success criteria that you could probably just advise the industry on taking?
So, well, this interestingly ties to, how do you pick out use cases? And there are a number of prerequisites that we recommend. So, the thing that I think is really important is, we're very excited about AI. Like, all of us are very excited about AI, but nobody should be implementing or adopting AI for the sake of AI. They should be adopting AI for the sake of driving patient value, business value, revenue growth, or optimization. And that should be very clearly defined. And what I find my customers who are doing AI governance and AI roadmap well really have this thought process. What are the things that are going to drive business value, whether it's in quality systems or whether it's in CRM, and that kind of those make it to the top of the list in terms of the playbook. Another thing that you brought up that I think is really key is and we may get a little bit more into this technically, but AI in effect is made out of data, right? So we're talking about manufacturing here. In a manufacturing line, if you have poor raw materials, you have poor quality finished products. Everybody knows that. This is a very important way to think about AI, in my view, that if you have the raw material of everything AI is data. So if your data is poor quality, if you have data governance challenges, if you have inconsistencies, this is really going to negatively impact the results that you have for AI and all of your AI aspirations. There may be two other quick points I can make, and that, I'd love to hear what the other panelists think, and we could explore this a little bit further. One is kind of thinking about scaling and how you choose to scale, so I mentioned briefly that I had started an ML company. One of the things that's been my observation for 10 years, it's very easy to do like science fair projects. It's an entirely different skill set to scale those up, especially to the level of enterprises. So you really want to pay attention when you're picking out. You want to do some experiments and get some warnings, right? But then you also want to have an eye on what things can I feasibly scale, to the level of a Gilead or a Johnson & Johnson or any other large enterprise. The other thing that maybe we'll come back to this, so I'll just sort of mention this and we could discuss it a little bit, is kind of thinking about what's your controls framework and governance, right? I mean, the reality is that the agencies provided excellent governance on product AI and very limited governance on operational AI. So I think we may come back to this point, but again, the companies that are doing this well in terms of the playbook, they're really looking at, just to recap quickly, what is the business value? Is my data any good? Can I scale it? And do I have a framework within which I can deploy these, with some confidence that, with real confidence that I'm doing it in a compliant manner? And sort of the opposite is true too. So there are a lot of companies that have aspirations, and then you sort of start talking to them about, what are you trying to do? How are you going to go about doing this? And you find that these pieces are not necessarily as well thought out as they should be, kind of versus all the genuine excitement that we have about doing AI.
Great.
Chris,
yeah.
Can I just add?
Please go ahead. Yes.
I think one of the things also that we should also be thinking about is training and capability building, right? Across the organization, and looking at roles and responsibilities as they evolve, right? groups and functions that we normally wouldn't engage with are now needing to be savvy in regards to not what AI is and what it can do, but also the regulatory implications. For example, IT and our technologists, understanding what their role, how their role has evolved, quality, legal, HR. So I feel that that's another piece that we should also be considering as part of that playbook.
Yeah, no, this is an excellent point. So there's a huge change management component, like kind of once you pick the programs, once you get into it. And maybe I just echo your observation that in many cases, AI is going to drive, in principle, it's going to enable collaboration between parts of the organization that haven't always, that have operated to some extent in silos, quality and regulatory being a good example. Now, I've been doing this for a few minutes, and I found that, where there are humans involved, they don't always necessarily, they're not always the best at working together, without some encouragement and some change management outside of their traditional silos. So I very much agree, as as we start scaling these programs, paying attention to change, what we're doing in terms of organizational boundaries, roles and responsibilities is extremely important.
This is a great segue for Abhishek, actually. I've been kind of saving this question for him about adoption and challenges. Okay. And Abhishek, I know you and I had several conversations. You could, you could implement anything you want. If you don't have a solid organizational change management, nothing is going to change. So what cultural organizational blockers show up most, and what tactics remove them?
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So within our organization, obviously, AI is getting a great support from the leadership.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and the various AI tools, like we are Copilot house here, are getting deployed, and certain people are getting enhanced access to create agents. So a lot of folks are simultaneously playing around with the same tools. The level of adoption depends on the type of use case. The GXP groups and the manufacturing units, generally, they are very reluctant to change, and because compliance involved, quality is involved, very closely related to product and patient. So those areas tend to lean towards the rule-based AIs, which they view more like what we traditionally used to call automation. And people have to adapt also. So, and when we try to sell it, yes, it is AI related solution, but take a deeper look. What would you do differently when you are doing a quality or compliance overview than you would have done for an automated system? Everything is rule-based, whether it is rule-based or regression-based. The output is always dependent on the input that is provided. So it is predictable through mathematical models. So that type of educational change, getting groups comfortable with adoption of it. And whenever we have like LLMs or RAGs involved, almost everywhere there's a human in the loop. Those type of use cases are also kind of limited, like creation of emails that can, where most of the drafting is there, the technical papers, information to other patients and doctors, and even translation. So those groups are adopting quickly the RAGs or LLM models with human in the loop. On the IT side, we are doing this rule-based, regression-based, and we cannot too much rely on synthetic data. So a lot of things are slowly moving so that when we have enough data that we can do modeling. So it's a slow and steady process. Now, every leader talks about getting trained, getting upskilled, and raising that comfort level with AI tools. Yeah.
If I- could I
Madhavi,
just-
yes.
there-
Yeah, I was going to go to you or Madhavi
Yeah, yeah.
actually, because I know Madhavi has also experience with OCM, but go ahead,
Well,
please, Chris.
I think Abhishek, just for for the broader audience, right? There are a couple of really important points that you made contained in there, and maybe I can just replay them a bit, and then I'd love to hear from both of you guys. So I think because LLMs are so exciting, right? And like the capabilities they have are almost magical in the minds, especially of senior executives. Like everything is LLM like. But you made a very important distinction, like it's sort of, old-fashioned machine learning is very powerful, and it's not purely non-deterministic and probabilistic the way that LLMs are. So for, any time in anything that is like core GXP, right? Like you're really going to have a human in the loop, and it's actually important to educate people on the distinction between how I think of it as like analytics, advanced analytics, machine learning, and regression analysis, and then LLMs. And they're they exist at different points in the stack. And understanding where you're going to deploy these different types of solutions, like it's very, very domain specific, right? So you get into the shop floor stuff you're talking about. We've been fighting for decades, right? It's very complex when you go to do like PLC, SCADA, MES, like that whole OT IT stack integration and data, like that's a very, very complex problem that really doesn't have like a canonical solution to it. So you can apply some good stuff that's quite discrete, but for those kinds of use cases, I think it's appropriate to move, at a very thoughtful pace versus, some of the things that we're exploring more broadly in like QMS, like for example, like automated production of SOPs, right? That's something that large language models can really assist with. But of course, like in the end of the day, like a person has got to sign off on the SOP and say, yeah, like I reviewed it, this is a valid SOP, but there's a lot of drafting. So it's really, there's another thing allied that maybe goes back a little bit to the first point I was making, sort of pick the right tool for the right job. And the selection of those tools is going to be very, very domain specific, especially as you get into, sort of core manufacturing shop floor type stuff.
Oh, absolutely, Chris. Especially, really defining intended use is key. It is key in regards to implementing AI solutions, because without that, you won't even know what tools to use and how to use them. And I think that comes back to CSA principles as well.
Absolutely. But Madhavi, I know you're trying to escape away from the answering anything on organizational change management. I know you've done a lot with that, right? And given AI, right? I mean, just like anything, just like introducing any system, ideas, process, there's always the cultural pushback. I can't do it. I'm not ready for it. And that kind of gonna take me into what Chris has mentioned about upskilling, right? And retooling individual. How would you recommend that? How would you approach that?
It starts from the top, Khalid. It starts with executive leadership and really having them really understand what is the technology and the use cases are related to it. Without that, having the embracement of the organization cannot embrace it. The other thing that we also need to think about is a true fear is what's going to happen to my job? Mm-hmm. Will I have a job? Yeah. And really having individuals understand that these tools are here to help us, not to replace us. Because as Chris mentioned, we still need humans to review these documents. Human in the loop is key. So again, looking at those two aspects, I think is really important in regards to organizational change management. One, leadership, and two, really having them understand the organization as a whole, understand what AI is and how it's supposed to help you doing your job, and the fact that you need to upscale your skills in order to embrace it. So it's not a replacement. It's more of retraining, building capability.
Makes sense. Great. Thank you. I want to switch a little bit to Let me see. I'm going to switch to Chris. Balancing innovation with compliance. How do you align with, again, computer system validation, computer software assurance, data integrity, and validation expectation?
Well, all right, this is an excellent question. There's a lot to unpack here. I guess
That's right.
one thing, this is, my view, and we could debate this a little bit. Like, you cannot validate a large language model, period. Right? It's a non-deterministic model with probabilistic outcomes. So, then you sort of you want to start thinking about, okay, like, what can I do with human in the loop? One of the things that I think is an interesting metaphor for this, like, so anyone who's ever done data migration for GXP, right? Like, you don't physically check every record. You use sampling. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to create capabilities that get to within the range of human error. So when I think that we're evolving towards, kind of a different type of control framework in the industry that takes account for this. And you can actually put an engineering hat and you can think of an engineering problem. It's like, you can, any part that you make, like if it's metal fabricated, right? Like, there's no part that can't break. Like, some number of parts is always going to break. It's a question of, like, how much do you invest for the required quality? So I think, one, this goes back to understanding the intended use and, what kind of a framework needs to be applied. I'll give you, an example. In Veeva, we're going fastest in commercial, right? Commercial's got a lower risk profile in GXP life sciences environments than quality. It's like, obviously, right? So, we're going and we're getting the warnings. Now, there are some things, of course, for regulated promotional materials and so on, that need to be validated and need to have human in the loop. I think the other thing is alluding to what I was saying before. Having done a fair amount of research and written a couple of white papers on this, there really isn't straightforward guidance on AI for operations. So there's very good guidance on AI for software as a medical device, and any smart pills, anything like that. The suggestion that I've made to industry executives and people working on this is look at that FDA, like, good machine learning practices, and you can actually garner a lot of what is a good controls framework from that and apply it. The other thing I'd say, and Abhishek, I don't know if you're able to comment on this, many of my customers have very well thought out kind of executive AI governance policies, right? So there's a whole other thing to think about, responsible use of AI. How does it intersect with data protection? So I guess maybe if I there's a lot, as I said, to unpack here, but the main thing is, think of this as it's a new frontier in terms of creating an appropriate and rigorous controls framework. That's a good starting point. I'm not actually so worried that there's going to be a lack of innovation, right? Like, the space, the industries, especially outside regulated industries, are innovating at a tremendous pace. And we're under a lot of both, like, psychological and financial pressure to adopt that innovation. So what I it's sort of like the story they tell of, like, well, if you go up on top, I'm in New York City today, right? If I go up on the roof here and there's no fence, I'm not going to get very close to the edge, right? If there's a fence, I can go up to the fence and I can peer over the edge and I can see what's beyond the fence. So I think that having, that good, rigorous controls framework, and also trusted partners. I mean, of course, we're building AI in, at the platform level in Veeva because we're a trusted partner. And, obviously our intention is that customers trust us to develop and we can deploy it within those guideposts. And then, once you have the fence around the building, there's a lot of innovation that can be done in that. And then it sort of gets to, what things do you pick that are going to drive value?
I think definitely the guardrails are really important. I know Madhavi expressed also to answer some of that question. Now, one thing, I don't want to say it's alarming, but LLM cannot be validated, right? So I'd like to challenge this. Let's see what
Right,
Madhavi and Abhishek feel about this.
If it can, I'm going to come with a huge takeaway. My view is that it cannot be validated.
All right, let's see what Madhavi has to say, and then we'll go to Abhishek. Madhavi, what's your thought on that?
Abhishek, why don't you take that question?
Sure. Yeah, I would agree with Chris. So whether it can be validated or not, it will kind of depend on the type of use case that we are going to use the LLMs for. Like LLMs, neural networks, very advanced machine learning, they evolve. So even if we somehow we are able to validate it today, it's still going to evolve and give some other outputs. But there will be a point for certain type of use cases, there will be enough acceptance and enough confidence in the industry for those type of use cases. Let's say there will be a point where folks are very comfortable. Yes, this AI tool, whatever version they created, whether in-house or whatever, using LLMs, is very, very reliable for translation, even using pharmaceutical and medical terminologies. So there will be a state, and that has to be kind of based on experience. Most likely a heavy involvement by humans will be there in the beginning, but eventually there will be less and less problems created by those tools. And there will be enough confidence and start using, this is a reliable use for this type of translation or these type of email drafting. Let's say they do not have to be on their own. It can be at the end or the start or somewhere in the middle of other AI solutions, which can be rule-based, which can be regression-based. For example, we started with a rule-based AI solution and which gave us the most of the benefit. But we are adding more machine learning on the data created and some LLMs for creation of service tickets or responses to people who are experiencing issues. So it can be a combination of all that, where a certain amount of confidence can be achieved. But validating LLMs by itself, probably it may be a losing battle with the traditional way of how we do validation. But currently putting human in the loop would be a more efficient solution there.
Yeah, you explained what I was trying to say more clearly than I did, right? It's like you can put a wrapper around the process. The core technology itself can't be validated.
That's what I was going to say, Abhishek. You brought up a great point. Looking at validation in a different way, not the traditional validation methodologies, right? And looking at it from maybe a different eye in regards to your validation or control strategy. Continuous monitoring, assessing bias, looking at the data itself. And again, I think the key point and the key takeaway, I think, from this conversation and any conversation in regards to AI is human in the loop.
There's one other thing you mentioned kind of implicitly that I think is important to think about, which is like, so over the course of my career, and I think we've all experienced this, like if you were doing, CSV for GXP systems like 20 years ago, like, boy, that was a lot of work, right? That was sort of in the pre-risk-based days. So I went through that whole transition multiple times. So I think the risk-based frame, going back to the intended use, is extremely important. And like one of the things as we're building platform AI that we're looking at is, I could go to this commercial example because it's a little bit more innocuous. You can actually characterize different pieces of content by their intrinsic risk level. And you can decide how you want to route those by workflow to human in the loop based on a risk level, and whether you want to have one or multiple review steps. So I think there's actually, just in real life, right? Like a lot of these more elaborate AI solutions over time, they're going to be deployed in a workflow context. And in a workflow context, I think there's a very good opportunity, like both within platforms like Vault and more broadly within data lake solutions, to actually look at where are the points of human in the loop, and how do you intersect those with a risk-based strategy to be able to have the right controls. And then, so this is a sort of a nuanced thing, but it's not strictly validating, an LLM, but it's creating a process with a rigorous controls framework that's suitable for scale deployment in life sciences and GXP regulated spaces. So it's like there's sort of the building blocks that we've been using, since the risk-based revolution 20-ish, 15 years or so ago. Continue those building blocks, but just doing that with cognizance of, kind of what the tools are, what they mean, what the right intervention points are. And obviously, like, this is all work too, right? So we're quite excited about the benefits that we're going to get, but setting this up properly, especially for highly regulated processes, like, it requires work and it requires some thought, and then that will be the foundation on which we can harvest all the good business benefits.
I'm going to pause on my questions here because I'm seeing quite a bit of questions, and you're probably seeing them also, John, from the attendees. So I'm just going to cherry pick a couple of them if you guys don't mind. And I'm just going to ask the questions. Whoever would like to answer, please jump at it. Considering the critical importance of accuracy and reliability in the quality world, whether using technology, companies, LLMs, or vendors in build platform, what has been working well for the quality and GXP world? Anyone that has potential? And again, I think we were just really talking about it now, right? In a way about validating LLM, right? So
yeah,
we kind of answered.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I could add one more comment on this. So, like,
Sure.
for the most part, the state of technology now, like, no company is going to build their own LLM. Like, the scale, like, the good LLMs, they're all being built by the frontier labs. So, Anthropic and OpenAI and Google and so on. We may enter an interesting world, and already this is available. Like, you can sort of rent training with proprietary data sets. That's, like, quite rare at this point. The architecture setup pretty much everywhere is if you're using an LLM, you're going to punch out to the LLM, right? So you've got whatever your underlying platform is, and then you're going to call an LLM through an API, and that's going to be integrated back into whatever your response workflow is. And I think so. Like, that's the deployment model that we see everywhere. That's similar to what how the LLM component of Vault AI is going to be architected. It's, like, really the correct way of doing it, in my view. And then I think we may have answered some of that question in the whole previous discussion of, understand, like, what's the process, what's the intended use, what's the risk tiering, even at different steps of the process, and then make sure, for things that are highly, very, very specific, you're not going to use an LLM in, like, part inspection, right? Or like analytical testing standards in pharma, right? Like, you're not going to use an LLM for that. You're going to use something that's that's more heuristic, whereas some of the other examples we talked about, promotional materials or standard operating procedures, you are going to use an LLM in that. So I'm hopeful that in the previous discussion, and then maybe that nuance around how the LLMs are actually being deployed in real life, that is helpful for that question.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, like for us internally, we have the enterprise version of Copilot, where Copilot cannot use our data to train their models, but through an API or we are still able to leverage the LLM, and which is accessible by all the users. Some of the users have enhanced access. So there are some guardrails in place, but whenever we use anything for the XP solution, we have more controls and the API type of solution, but a lot are still getting worked on, and the plan is to have human in the loop when it is implemented.
Great. There is one question, I guess they're asking about use case when an example of optimizing manufacturing process. Does any of you folks have any solid example about a use case, I do have four in my pocket. I can share them after the webinar. I can, and John can share them with all the attendees that the FDA industry CSA team have developed actually. So I can share that with you. But Chris, Abhishek, Madhavi, do you have any short use case with example for optimizing manufacturing process that you could share here?
So I could share one that I think is very relevant to folks, and that is actually looking at batch release and automating and using AI to support batch release and actually identify batches that should be reworked before it even gets to that point. We've been working with clients in this space and looking at this as a potential use case, and have been working with clients to implement that use case.
Okay, great. I'm going to actually share my screen to share with you, which is actually in the, give me a second here. Hopefully you can see my screen. Here's a couple of things to share. Are you able to see my screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So again, this is view of the process optimization from predictive maintenance to process monitoring control. Again, digital twin is definitely it's growing from a virtual models, root cause analysis, demand forecasting, workforce augmentation. A lot of that is actually being addressed and being applied in manufacturing facilities, specifically in pharma. If anyone wants to add any comment on this.
Another one that I think Chris brought up is in regards to SOPs.
Yes.
Right, in development of SOPs, there's another use case that's actually very useful, which is SOP consolidation and harmonization.
Yes.
We've used AI a lot of companies grow inorganically, really using AI to understand what those SOPs look like and how to harmonize those SOPs. We've been using AI for as well.
That's great. Sounds good. Just looking for any additional questions.
Just let me make a comment on that, and you don't have to put
Sure.
the page up, but it's kind of relevant to this page. Like, one of the things that I've been thinking about and working with CIOs and technology teams is, the closer. So we could pick on your example there that you have on like supply and demand, right? If you've gone more to systems of record and your kind of core digital transformation is more mature, the AI is going to work a lot better, right? This is a very important point, especially for the medtech industry, which to your point you just made about inorganic growth, is very M&A heavy, right? So you typically end up with very fragmented systems, processes, and data. So one of the things that we're kind of looking at is okay, like the AI part is very, very exciting, and there's a lot of value that's going to come from it. There is, in my view, sort of coming this potential digital divide around AI, where companies that have made more investment and have higher maturity in terms of system of record optimization, standard simplified enterprise architecture, are really going to be able to harvest a lot more of the benefits than companies that are very fragmented. And you can just actually happen to have some personal experience of this supply and demand planning, right? If you've got like some companies that I'm aware of, dozens or perhaps 40 or 50 operational ERPs, boy, it's pretty hard. Any AI is going to really struggle with getting as good outputs as it is if you've moved down to one or a couple of ERPs. And certainly we think about that for Vault related transformations, but also for ERP. So this is something I really wouldn't, just as everyone's working on AI, it's what they used to call like multimodal AI, right? So don't forget about the core digital transformation while we're doing the AI stuff, because the AI stuff is really going to work better on a chassis, on a foundation of the core digital transformation.
Great, great. One thing I wanted to, again, I think that goes back to one of the questions I asked you, Chris. I kind of had this little framework, for a start small playbook. And I think you kind of really alluded to that. But I think this is something that any organization, as they're planning and the question come up, where do I start? Where do I go? I think, choose the right first project, right? And then define your success criteria, your data prerequisite and execution and scale. And I think many organizations are, I believe some of them are really struggling going down that path just because AI is overwhelming to a lot of organizations, right? And I think it just with practice, anything is possible. I know we're approaching. Is there any additional question, John, that we're getting from anyone? I know we're
there's quite a few in here, and I thought, because we have until 12:15. I know many of you might need to go, but a lot of you are staying right now. So what I could do is, like Chris Navicek and Madhavi, would you go to the question and scan through there? I saw a question that's specific for Veeva. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to launch a quick poll for the attendees, because a lot about what you're talking about is our upcoming programs. I kind of reviewed those at the very beginning. So I'm going to launch a poll for 30 seconds and have you guys just scan the questions and see if there's anything that you could pull out. There's a lot of good questions that you might be able to give some information for the attendees. So I'm going to launch that poll for 30 seconds. And then if you guys look at those questions, we'll come back and take a few of those.
I can answer the Veeva question. The question was, has Veeva built AI plugins for all quality systems, and do we have a roadmap? So I'm going to answer that with taking a step back for our overall AI strategy. So we have about 50 different applications that span from R&D, regulatory, quality, commercial. Those are the main areas in which we operate. All the applications are built on a common cloud-native SaaS platform. We are building AI at the level of the platform, and it will be able to be consumed within all applications. The different domains, including quality, have kind of different spots on the roadmap. The first of the quality AI capabilities within the Vault platform, if I'm not mistaken, will be released for early adopters in one of our releases next year. And we will, by the end of 2027, have general availability for AI in all the different major or what we call the domains, including quality systems. So if there's a more specific thing, I'd be happy to kind of connect you to the right people in Veeva, and we could talk about that a little bit more in detail. But we've taken as we do kind of a long-term approach. Really, we wanted Peter Gassner, our CEO and founder, has this great phrase that we're building useful AI. So all the things that we've been talking about here, we're really very focused within the individual domains on what are the right use cases for us to start with, as well as what are some agentic capabilities that can be deployed within the platform. We also, just as a point of interest, that the customers will have the ability to build their own agents within each one of the domains, but that will be fully contained within Vault. And it does have a punch out, as I discussed, to either any company's LLM that they've already adopted as an enterprise standard, or sort of a leased LLM through Veeva. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavor, and we'll have our contact information. So if there's anyone if anyone would like to connect in more detail on Veeva, I'm happy to get that arranged.
Sounds good. I see one question for me, why is FDA hesitant to release the CSA guidelines? Well, first of all, I don't work for the FDA. I collaborated with the FDA. Many of us provided our comments, but the drafts still remain a draft today. Yes. So, as you know, the FIXA team, which is the FDA industry CSA team that has collaborated with the FDA for the past, God knows now, 8 years to get the draft guidance out. The draft guidance was released September 13, 2022. September 13, 2025, it marked the 3 years anniversary for a draft guidance, but not a final. I hear a rumor it should have been final release on the 13th, but it didn't. I'm hearing a rumor it might be coming up in the next few weeks. That's all I can share. But again, given the administration, the changes that had happened in the FDA, and I'm sure you guys are following all the news of what's going on. Our FDA partners are not able to participate with us as much as they used to.
And there's one, Chris, there's one at 1156 on large language models, kind of going on your comments on that.
From Darren. So the question, basically the question, as I understand it, is if LLMs can't be validated, is regulation expecting validation for AI tools? There's sort of a complicated answer to this. Let me give you my view, and my colleagues may have a point of view as well. I think the most useful thing to look at is the guidance document from FDA that I referred to earlier on good machine learning practices. And that kind of talks about predetermined change control plans for algorithms. I don't think that there's a clear regulatory statement yet, to my knowledge, saying that we expect these to be able to be validated. I think the controls framework discussion that we had kind of gets to the point of, can we look at validating an overall, can we look at qualifying an overall process in terms of its outcome and intended use, and also with respect to the inherent risk of the process.
Yeah, and go ahead, Madhuri.
No, please, Abhishek.
Yeah, I was just going to add that probably we have to be also kind of cognizant of validation as a term includes both qualification of technologies and the governance around it. So although to do a functional verification of an LLM in a traditional sense, requirement, design, to do the testing would be tough because it's kind of a black box. But we can still put governance around it. And that will be the validation of using LLMs and in a compliant manner for a subset of use cases where we have high confidence from the outputs coming out of LLMs. And that will also keep evolving. So yes, it can be validated in the sense like we have the governance around it. We properly define the rules of engagement with the tools and things like that. So the traditional requirement, design, testing, traceability, yes, that is tough with LLMs. It can be done with other forms of AI, which are rule-based, regression-based, things like that, but tough with LLMs. So that's what I meant when I said it cannot be validated, but we can still have the governance around it.
Yeah, I'm just going to add really my 2 cents on here. And again, for those of you who's been following, the computer software assurance, right? The reason for the word assurance replacing the word validation, ever since this whole draft guidance started is, again, focusing on the risk, right? If any tool you're working with, any LLM you're working with, I'm not gonna really just make things up, but critical thinking need to come really handy here, where you have an enterprise system that does not have major risk on patient safety, product quality, and data integrity, right? Um, assess, do your unscripted testing. Unscripted testing, ad hoc testing is going to become very, very handy with AI, as AI is launching and launching pretty fast. The regulatory agencies are not going to tell you, no, you don't need to validate LLM, right? I always go back to what John Murray back in the days, almost 9 years ago, told me. Organization should not do nothing. You need to do something. And he answered me that question when I asked, how about a tool like an application lifecycle management tool like Jira, or um, like validation management for Viva, for example? Do I need to validate those? Those are productivity tools. He's like, I'm not going to tell you not to. I'm not going to tell you do it. Use your head and don't do nothing. You have to do something in order to make sure that this tool works as expected, and it goes back to your intended use. Even your LLM, it's going to change every second, every hour, right? You're not going to be able to get the same result out of it every hour, right? So the idea is put guardrails in place, put controls in place, put checkpoints in place. But again, you've got enough guidance from GAMP, from the FDA, from PICS, Annex 11. All of this should really help you make those decisions. If you're gonna keep waiting for the agency to tell you how to validate, you're not gonna get that answer, in my opinion.
I agree. That's why, and I think that's a good like shopping list, if you will. There's plenty of related guidance, and the critical thinking, and the whole point is, and no one is going to do this, right? But it's like, don't deploy these things without a good controls framework, without having management control. And what's like the golden rule, right? Say what you'll do what you say. If you can apply that, it's very simple, right? Like people make it's very complicated on one level, but the intent of it is very simple, that you have a process that has controls and that you're able to run the process within those controls and understand if you're meeting the controls framework or not. So this is exactly how I think, how I suggest that everyone approach this, right? And of course, it's a little bit more complicated, and we have these things that are non-deterministic, but even Kelly, to your point, the LLM may not produce exactly the same response, but you can have somebody look and say, is it producing responses that are correct responses, right? And then you can look at that statistically, to the point Abhishek made, over time, and say, okay, like, is it about as good as a human? And then you kind of risk tier it, and you've got a good controls framework.
Madhavi, I have one that was probably for you, considering when you were talking about batch records, considering the AI use and optimizing batch and anomalies in the manufacturing setting, what's the acceptance of vast data in the quality world?
Now, I think it goes back to some of the things, a lot of the principles that we spoke about today. I think, the acceptance of that data and the acceptance of that information in regards to optimization, in regards to release, really depends upon how you use that data, the processes and controls you have in regards to retrieving that data, and how do you determine if that data is accurate. One of the things that we didn't talk about during this conversation is, we talked about human in the loop, but one of the things we didn't talk about was how human in the loop should be trained in order to not just review that data, but interpret that data. And I think that's a very key concept that we need to really focus on, and just not accept the data as accurate.
Great, thanks. I'll ask, we do have 6 minutes left, so if any of you want to pull out another question, there's some comments. I do have a lot of people asking for the recording. All you have to do is go sign up on connects.org and become a member, and we'll send you the recording of this. And just a reminder, the poll is still open. If you want information on an upcoming event, please fill out that poll there. But do, I want to thank all of you for a lively discussion and great points. We do have, the questions. I'm going to send all of these questions, who asked them, over to the presenters today, so we make sure all of them get answered for you. But why don't we go into, last minute thoughts, and I'll start with you, Chris. Last minute final thought, what you would like people to take from this webinar today from your perspective. And then if you could keep it to a minute, we'll just go down the line.
Yeah, thanks, John. Well, one, I thought this was really a good discussion, and thanks to the panelists and Khaled, very, very fun. Hopefully everyone learned something from it. My colleague who presented at one of our conferences had a great phrase, and he said, AI is not a fad. So, we're very fortunate, I think, as supply chain people, technology people, to be in a moment where this is sort of maybe the second great technology revolution in the last 20 years, and we're right in the middle of it. So it's going to feel a little bit confusing. It reminds me a little bit of the late 90s, when everyone knew that the internet was going to be something, but not exactly what. Kind of feel the same way about AI, but I think there's a tremendous amount of value if we approach it thoughtfully. Maybe go back to the very first question as you're thinking about how to do this. Of course, like, we're life sciences, so we're going to deploy everything in a compliant way, but really focus on what it is that you're trying to do, what are the outcomes that you're trying to drive, and and how are we going to improve outcomes for patients, business outcomes for our teams by deploying AI, rather than just doing AI for AI's sake. I think that's kind of my macro thought to end on.
Okay, Abhishek.
Yeah, I would like to. I'm very excited about AI, the future of AI, and how we can use it. What I would like to tell everyone, or make them look at it in a different manner, in the sense, AI is not just ChatGPT or Gemini. It's a huge spectrum. So, and we should not be using just one example that we see in every type of problem sets that we have, because a lot of times a very explainable form of AI can give you the most benefits, rather than going to the other evolving type of AI solutions. So it's a big spectrum. Along with AI, we are also getting the huge computing power and the data sets that can be worked with, and associated trending regressions that we can do.
Great.
So yeah.
Thank you so much. We have 1 minute and 30 seconds left. It will end. Madhavi, could you just give a few remarks, and then Khaled, just thank you all again, but I'll start with you, Madhavi.
No, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the panelists, Khaled, Compliance Group, and Kennex. I want to echo some of the things that Chris and Abhishek said. I'm so excited about this time. It is a exciting time, not just for pharma, med device, life sciences as a whole, and just not to fear this, fear AI. AI is here, and we need to embrace it like other regulated industries, such as finance, aerospace, etc. They're using it, and they're using it in different forms. We also need to embrace it. Otherwise, we're going to fall behind. So again, exciting times and looking forward to them. Khaled, I think you're next.
Sure. Yes, I'm going to make it really short and sweet. When I worked at Baxter, the mission was to save and sustain lives. I continue to live by that even now after I co-founded Compliance Group. I literally live by that because I'm a patient myself. And if AI is going to save one extra life a day, I'm going to definitely vote for it. I'm going to work really, really hard to make sure that we can apply it throughout our industry. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much. I look forward to seeing you on another webcast, an upcoming event. And again, we'll get those questions over to the presenters today, and we'll get every one of those answered. Thank you all for attending, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the next event. Thanks to all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.